Just another brother with another humble question. Just another brother with another humble question.
Welcome to another episode of A Brother with Questions. I am your host, B. Man, I appreciate y'all for joining me. Please like, subscribe to the channel. Click that little like button, man. Share it too, man. And then don't forget to comment. Tell me what you're thinking about the video, especially this one. I'm curious to know what the people have to say about this one. We're going to dive in right here, man. We're going to talk about the shooting in Chicago of the young man, Dexter Reed. A lot of people been talking about it. They just dropped the police footage, the body cam footage, just dropped on the internet. I'm gonna tell you now, I am not going to be playing body cam footage. There are plenty of places on the internet you can go watch that if you haven't seen it and want to see it. So it is out there. But I do want to talk about how people are discussing it. And so the first video we're going to watch here is the attorney for the family. And so they are giving a press conference. You can see the three people in the front there represent are the attorneys for the family. The family's in the background. His father's there, his mother, he had a sister apparently. And I know there's at least one uncle there that I saw in another video. And then some other family members are there, but I just want you to pay attention to how the lawyer describes what happened that day.
A broadcaster. So let's talk about why we're here today and why Mayor Johnson and State's Attorney Kim Foxx and Chief of COPA just gave their press conference. We're here today because on March 21st, something really tragic happened in the city of Chicago. What we witnessed on the video that we watched with the family yesterday was tactical officers, plain clothes, unmarked SUV, wearing hoodies and baseball caps, pulling over Dexter for not wearing a seatbelt. These officers never announced they were police officers. And then what we witnessed, Dexter got out of his car, unarmed, and was shot by the police. Based on the COPA report that you all received this morning, 96 rounds were fired by these officers. So let's say that again. 96 rounds were fired by these tactical officers. And what also happened is if you watch the end of the video, you see an officer military style executing Dexter while he laid by his vehicle, unarmed and helpless. Last Friday at the funeral.
Okay. So there's the attorney describing the case. And so he says on March 21st, Dexter Reed was gunned down by police officers after a traffic stop for not wearing a seatbelt, apparently, or at least, as they say, allegedly. And then he was shot down execution style by police, even though he did not have a gun. So that's the attorney's version. Just in full disclosure, I mean, if you go watch the entire video, you'll see that the family spoke, of course. They are very distraught about losing their loved one, understandably. He even spoke briefly about Dexter and who Dexter has been or had been up until that point in his life as well. But obviously we're talking about March 21st. And his version, Dexter, unarmed, got out the car, and then police shot him execution style. All right, so that's the attorney's version. Obviously, he's not the only one talking about it. So Fox News is talking about it as well, and let's see how they reported the story.
But they're not telling you the truth. Dexter Reed opened fire on police. After he was pulled over, he shot at police first, and they returned fire. His gun was recovered and he'd emptied his clip. We'll show you the video in a second, but look at these headlines. Seatbelt violation ends with black man dead on Chicago street after cops fired nearly 100 bullets. Police fire 96 shots in 41 seconds, killing black man during traffic stop. Deadly Chicago traffic stop where police fired 96 shots raises serious questions about use of force. Not one of those headlines tells you that Reed is the one who started the shootout. The media is looking for another George Floyd to divide and conquer with. And the Chicago mayor is in on it.
As mayor and as a father raising a family, including 2 black boys on the west side of Chicago, I'm personally devastated to see yet another young black man lose his life during an interaction with the police.
An interaction with the police? He opened fire on police. And police did what they're trained to do, return fire until the threat to their lives and to the lives of their fellow officers is neutralized. What the media won't tell you is that Dexter Reed didn't want to go back to prison because he was awaiting trial on gun charges. He'd also just been arrested for shoplifting. Viewer warning, this is the body cam footage of the shooting, and it shows a very different story than what the media is presenting.
Okay, so that's what we're going to stop that video. And let's just have a conversation. Let's have a conversation. So from everything that we can gather from this story, number one, we're seeing 2 different versions of the story be played out, depending on who you watch on television. There's the first problem. Why is it that a story is being purposely told from 2 completely different perspectives, leaving out on one end of the story a key piece of information about the story? As you can see, when the attorney talked about it, and even when the headlines that were in the Washington Post and the AP, when you go back and you read those articles, the fact that Dexter Reed had a gun is a blip. There are way more words about the police and the 96 shots and police and their quote unquote bad reputation with young black males. There's way more words than that than there are about the fact that in this particular instance, this young man had a gun, and obviously this is still an ongoing investigation. But so far, and it has not been disputed yet, so we'll see, but so far, the facts say, and even the video says, Dexter Reed took a gun and began to fire at police. And so one of my issues with this is we're being disingenuous with the conversation. And so as a result, the entire conversation is being dismissed. And so what am I saying? There was a study done by a professor, Dr. Roland Fryer from Harvard. And in his study, he showed 2 things. He showed, one, that police are particularly aggressive when dealing with young black males or blacks in general. So it's certainly more aggressive than others. And 2, it showed that there wasn't any bias when it came to police shootings. The study was dismissed as incorrect, mainly not because of the aggressor. They actually agree with the aggression, but mainly because he suggested that there was no bias in police shootings. And so they dismissed the entire study. They dismissed him. He almost lost his job. It was crazy. But here's my point that I made. And that was back in 2016. So if you look at the body cam footage, I think one thing you could honestly agree on is that the way they pulled up on him for at least what they're saying is a seatbelt violation. Number one, they were aggressive. So for me, I'm looking at this story and I'm going, there's a conversation to be had about the reason for their aggressive nature of pulling him over for a seatbelt violation. Because if you go back to the video, you have a and again, we don't know what happened prior to the video, so I'm only judging the video. But in the video, you have an officer cutting him off on one end, and then you have officers approaching him from behind for what they say was a seatbelt violation. So I think that is very aggressive for a seatbelt violation. We could have a conversation about that if we would own all of the facts, I think, and why, and ask the question, why be so aggressive for a seatbelt violation? But when you dismiss all of the facts or dismiss a key fact, let's say that, everybody who listening to you dismiss this key fact is not even thinking about that anymore. They're just thinking about the fact that you just denied that the fact that the man had a gun and actually shot it at police officers. So they can't even get to the fact that they were extremely aggressive in the beginning because you've already triggered them by ignoring the fact that he had a gun that he actually fired at police with. One of the other arguments that they make is that the police didn't identify themselves. From the video, it looks like they were at least wearing police vests. It looks like the police, it said police on their bulletproof vests. So whether they said they were police, I don't think he didn't know that they were police, because at the end of the day, he knew they weren't a gang, right? There's no gang of white people and black people running through the neighborhood terrorizing people. So he probably knew that they were police. I disagree with them on that, because that's the other contention that to the family, or the lawyer, I ain't gonna say the family, the lawyer is making, is that he didn't know that they were police. Well, who else is pulling you over in the middle of the street? It ain't a gang. We know that. It's not the gang. So, and then you get to the next step, right? So now we got this aggression pulled over. I agree, it was aggressive, especially for a seatbelt violation. Assuming that's what they pulled him over for. That's what they said. Just going off what they said. And then here's the next step of this, right? So they're aggressively pulling you over. They're asking you to roll down the window. You can see that in the video. They're asking to roll down the window for whatever reason. And again, honestly, I don't doubt that perhaps there was some fear on his part. I'll give him the fear. I'm not even saying I don't, I think under the circumstances, anybody might have had some fear. But at the same time, the fear, to me, it leads me to ask the question, why not just comply? Because it clearly, they were already aggressive. So why not comply? And I know I'm playing Monday morning quarterback. And so for those of you triggered by that, I apologize. I'll give you that. But I'm still wondering, because these are the things I'm asking. Why not comply? Why aggravate the situation further by locking the door so that they can't get in? By, cooperating to roll down the window, and then not cooperating to roll it back up, when clearly everything is heightened. And so somebody, right, and you would say it's the police's job to calm it down. I'll agree with you on that. But if they're not able to do that, or they are not doing it, then there's now a responsibility on me to help calm this thing down, because this thing is getting crazy. But knowing how high the aggression is, and again, according to the facts, this young man, and again, I'll give it, he was scared. Scared or not, you can't pull a gun on the police. I'm going to go a step further. You can't pull a gun on a gang member. You can't pull a gun trying to rob somebody's house who already has guns. And then when, according to the reports that we have so far, he's shot first. So we're already in a heightened situation. The police are already on 300. And then, according to what we can see in the video, because it definitely sounds like he's shot, and then you can see them running away, and then you can see them getting into their tactical stance, and then, everything else happens. But you shoot at the police in 96 rounds. So quick math, they say there was at least 4 officers there. If they have at least 16 bullets in their gun, that's 96 rounds. So if again, we can Monday morning quarterback and go, that was too many shots. Okay. But I'll ask you this. If you were at your house, and I got it, they weren't at their house, this concept still applies. If you were in a situation where you had to defend yourself, and there were people shooting at you, do you shoot one shot and check to see if they're stop shooting at you, or do you shoot until you feel like you are safe again? And so I don't know what that number is, but I do know that most people are going to shoot till they feel safe again. But what I made this video for, and the overall point that I'm making is Dexter Reed might have been one of the greatest human beings on the planet. But on March 21st, Dexter Reed, from all intents and purposes, shot at the police. And there's no outcome where someone shoots at the police and they walk away. Especially at that close distance. And so I think you could argue whether maybe they shot too much. I think you can argue whether maybe those last 3 shots at the end, maybe they shouldn't have took them. I think you can argue about whether they were way too aggressive in the beginning of the confrontation for a seatbelt violation. But in order to have those conversations, which I think we can have those conversations, I think those conversations about the aggressive nature that sometimes police have for what is considered a minor traffic violation, I think you can have those conversations. But in having those conversations, you have to acknowledge all of the truth. Because when you stop acknowledging the whole truth, you shut down even the people who might have listened to you because you won't admit the entire truth. If the facts don't matter, we don't have a starting point in the conversation. And so I just want people to sit back for a moment. And I don't know, I guess we'll see in the days and coming times. I see where Fox News is trying to take this already. They're trying to say that the Democrats want to use this situation to rally the black folks in order to go out and vote for Joe Biden, as they claim that, see, the cops are out to kill you, and Joe Biden is the only person that's going to do anything about it. Donald Trump and the Republicans don't care about you. They don't care. That's the rallying cry that Jesse Waters thinks they're about to do. You know, if if you listen to the beginning of that video, he even suggests, right? Because Democrats are scared that black people are about to vote for Donald Trump and not vote for Joe Biden. I'm not here for the foolishness. At the end of the day, I don't care what the news tells you. Anybody with sense knows that black people will vote about 85% for Joe Biden. 85 to 90%. The ones that show up. That's probably closer to the truth. It's not gonna. They're not losing 40 or 50% of the black vote. It's 5 to 10. That's what's gonna be. And so, they're gonna try and whip us into this frenzy, even with the headlines, right? They're whipping into us a frenzy. Rather than talk about the truth. Again, had he not shot at the police, would he currently be dead? Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they would have tried to kill him anyway. I honestly don't know. But what I do know is that he fired at them. And once he did that, for anybody to think the outcome was going to be anything different is being disingenuous. And you hit one of them. It was just a flesh wound. Okay, you still hit him. So, honest in the conversation. And I think if you can be honest in your conversation, I think you can honestly get people to hear what you want to say. Rather than turn this into another unarmed black man was shot dead. That's not the truth. And if you can't tell the truth, then you can't expect them to hear you. And for me, I want to have a real conversation. I think we should have a conversation about the aggression that sometimes you get for minor traffic violations because you're black sometimes. I think that's a conversation to be had. But if you can't also talk about the fact that in this particular case, because that's what we're talking about right now, that this young man shot them first, then you'll never get by anybody to talk about the aggression. And there's the mistake. That's what we have to fix. We have to tell all of it. And like I said, I'm not here to tell you he was a bad man. Because maybe up until that day, maybe he was one of the greatest human beings alive. But that day, he did something that took away from his greatness. And until you can talk about that, and I'm not talking about, Fox News, conservatives, they're already talking about that. And they're not going to they're not going to let you forget it either. But if you can't talk about that, attorney, everybody on the left-leaning side, progressive-leaning side, then we're not having a conversation. We're doing what we've always been doing. We're talking to the wall. We're talking to the people that like us. And because of that, we're continuing to drive wedges where we don't have to. And on that note, I'm B. Period. And I'm out.